Everyone knows Michael Jordan as the greatest basketball player who ever lived. 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, a billion-dollar brand that made him famous around the world. But what they don't know is the secret that shaped everything about him. The childhood betrayal that made him build walls around his heart. The racist attack that nearly destroyed his ability to trust anyone. For 37 years, Michael carried this pain alone. He never spoke about it in interviews. He never wrote about it in his books. He buried it so deep that even his closest family members didn't know the truth. Until one phone call changed everything. This is the story of 10-year-old Michael Jordan and his best friend Tommy Richardson. 2 boys who promised to be friends forever. 2 boys whose friendship was torn apart by hatred and fear in the summer of 19. But the real shock isn't what happened to Michael that night in the woods behind Sunset Park. The real shock is what he believed about that night for almost 4 decades. Because sometimes the truth is more painful than any lie. And sometimes the people we think betrayed us actually saved our lives. The rain hit the windows of Michael Jordan's Chicago office like angry tears. It was a cold October day in 2010. And the most famous basketball player in the world sat alone behind his massive oak desk. His hands shook as he held an old photograph. The picture was faded and wrinkled. It showed 2 young boys with their arms around each other's shoulders. One boy was black with a huge smile. The other was white with freckles and missing front teeth. Both boys looked happy and innocent. Michael's fingers traced the edge of the photo. His throat felt tight. "Some people think they know my story," he whispered to the empty room. "They think it all started with basketball. But they're wrong. It really started with Tommy." The name felt strange coming out of his mouth. He hadn't said it out loud in over 30 years. Tommy Richardson, his first best friend. His first real enemy. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Maria, his assistant, poked her head through the door. Her face showed worry. "Mr. Jordan, the reporters are here for your interview about growing up in North Carolina. They want to talk about your early life before basketball." Michael quickly stuffed the photograph into his desk drawer. The reporters couldn't see it. Nobody could see it. This was his secret, and it had to stay that way. "Tell them I need 5 more minutes," he said without looking up. "Are you okay? You look upset." Michael forced a smile onto his face. It was the same fake smile he had used for years when people asked about his childhood. "I'm fine, Maria. Just remembering old times." After Maria left, Michael leaned back in his leather chair. Through the window, he could see Chicago's busy streets. Cars moved slowly through the rain. People hurried along the sidewalks with umbrellas. Everyone out there thought they knew Michael Jordan. They knew about his 6 championship rings. They knew about his famous tongue hanging out when he played. They knew about his shoes and his money and his fame. But they didn't know the real story. They didn't know about the night that changed everything. The night when he learned that people could smile at you while planning to hurt you. The night when his best friend became his worst nightmare. Michael opened the desk drawer again and looked at the photograph. The 2 boys in the picture looked so happy, so trusting. They had no idea what was coming. "We were going to be friends forever," Michael said quietly. "That's what we promised each other." He remembered that promise, like it was yesterday. They had made it sitting in their secret tree fort during the summer of 1973. Tommy had spit in his palm and held out his hand. Michael had done the same thing. They shook hands with their spit-covered palms and swore they would be best friends until they died. "Nothing can break us apart," Tommy had said that day. "Not our parents. Not other kids. Not anything." But Tommy was wrong. Something did break them apart. Something that still made Michael's stomach hurt when he thought about it. The intercom on his desk buzzed. "Mr. Jordan?" "The reporters are getting impatient." Michael took a deep breath. He was good at hiding his feelings. He had been practicing for 37 years. "Send them in," he said. As he put the photograph back in the drawer, Michael's mind traveled back in time, back to Wilmington, North Carolina. Back to Gordon Road, the old oak tree. Back to when he was just 10 years old and believed that friendship meant forever. Back to the summer when everything changed. The office door opened, and 3 reporters walked in with their cameras and notebooks. They all smiled and shook his hand. They called him Sir and thanked him for his time. "We're so excited to hear about your childhood," Mr. Jordan said, a young woman with blonde hair. What was it like growing up in North Carolina? Tell us about your first experiences with sports. Michael smiled his practice smile and began telling them the stories they wanted to hear. Stories about his loving family. Stories about learning to play basketball. Stories about working hard and never giving up. But he didn't tell them about Tommy Richardson. He didn't tell them about the camping trip. He didn't tell them about the night in the woods when he learned that trust was dangerous. And as the interview continued, one voice echoed in his memory. A 10-year-old boy's voice calling out desperately, "Tommy, wait for me." But even now, 37 years later, Tommy never waited. Summer 1973 was the hottest anyone could remember in Wilmington, North Carolina. 10-year-old Michael Jeffrey Jordan lived on Gordon Road in a small brick house with green shutters. His mama, Dolores, kept the windows open all day trying to catch any breeze that might blow through. The neighborhood was mixed up like a puzzle. Black families and white families lived right next to each other, though they didn't always get along. Some days were peaceful. Other days, grown-ups would argue about things Michael didn't understand. But Michael didn't worry about grown-up problems. He had more important things to think about, like meeting his best friend every morning at exactly 8 o'clock. Tommy Richardson lived 3 houses down in a white house with red flowers in the front yard. He had moved from Ohio 2 years ago when his daddy got a job at the shipyard. While other kids in the neighborhood stuck with their own kind, Michael and Tommy became best friends right away. Their meeting spot was an old oak tree that sat right between their houses. The tree was huge and perfect for climbing. Its thick branches made a natural ladder all the way to the top. Michael and Tommy had built a secret fort up there using old boards and rope. Every morning, rain or shine, they met at that tree. "Hey, Michael," Tommy called out on this particular hot July morning. His red hair was messy from sleep, and his freckled face was already sweating. "You ready for another adventure?" Michael asked, grinning as he grabbed the lowest branch. The boys climbed up to their fort like 2 squirrels. Tommy was a little faster because his arms were longer, but Michael never gave up. Once they reached their special place, they would sit and plan their day. "My mama packed extra sandwiches for lunch," Tommy said, pulling a brown paper bag from his backpack. "Peanut butter and jelly." "Mine too," Michael said, "and she gave me 50 cents for ice cream." Tommy's eyes got wide. 50 whole cents? We could get 2 ice creams and still have money left over. That was how their friendship worked. Everything was shared. Money, food, secrets, dreams. If one boy got something good, they both enjoyed it. If one boy got in trouble, they both felt bad about it. "What should we do today?" Michael asked, looking out over the neighborhood from their high perch. "Let's go fishing at the Cape Fear River," Tommy suggested. "My daddy taught me a new way to tie hooks yesterday. Or we could ride our bikes to downtown and look at the comic books at Murphy's 5 and Dime," Michael said. "We could do both," Tommy said, bouncing with excitement. Fish in the morning, comics in the afternoon. This was why Michael loved Tommy so much. Tommy never said no to adventures. He never said something was too dangerous or too far to walk. He was always ready for whatever Michael wanted to do. Tommy's family was different from other white families in the neighborhood. His daddy, Robert Richardson, actually talked to Michael's parents. He would wave when he saw them working in the yard. Sometimes he even stopped to chat about the weather or the Wilmington Sharks baseball team. "Your daddy's real nice," Michael told Tommy one day. "He likes your family," Tommy said. "He told my mama that your daddy is a good man who works hard to take care of his children." Most white daddies in the neighborhood didn't talk about black families that way. Most of them acted like black families were invisible. Tommy's mama, Susan Richardson, was nice too. She always smiled and said hello when she saw Michael. Sometimes she even invited him to stay for dinner when he was playing at their house late. "Tommy talks about you all the time," she told Michael once. "He thinks you're the smartest boy in the whole neighborhood." That made Michael feel proud and happy. At his own house, Tommy was treated just like family. Michael's mama, Dolores, always made extra food when she knew Tommy was coming over. His daddy, James, taught both boys how to throw a curveball in the backyard. "You boys stick together," James Jordan told them one evening after practicing baseball. Good friends are hard to find. Michael and Tommy had secret handshakes that took a whole minute to complete. They made up their own language using clicks and whistles. They shared everything: comic books, candy, dreams about the future. "When we grow up, I'm gonna be a pilot," Tommy said one day, as they sat in their tree fort. "I'm gonna play baseball like Willie Mays," Michael said. "And we'll still be best friends even when we're old men." "Promise?" Tommy asked, sticking out his pinky finger. "Promise," Michael said, hooking his pinky with Tommy's. They had made that promise dozens of times. It felt as solid as the oak tree they sat in. But not everyone in Wilmington was happy about their friendship. Some white families whispered when they saw the boys together. Some black families worried that Michael was forgetting where he came from. Michael heard the whispers but didn't understand them. How could friendship be wrong? How could playing and laughing and sharing adventures hurt anybody? Tommy heard the whispers too, but he always shrugged them off. "People talk about everything," he said. "Don't mean we gotta listen." One afternoon in late July, as storm clouds gathered in the sky, the boys made their biggest plan yet. "Let's go camping," Tommy suggested. "Like real explorers." "Where?" Michael asked. "In the woods behind Sunset Park. We could tell our mamas we're sleeping at each other's houses, then meet up at midnight." Michael's heart pounded with excitement. A real camping trip. Just the two of them under the stars. "That sounds amazing," Michael said. "We could bring flashlights and tell ghost stories and roast marshmallows if we can make a fire," Tommy added. As the boys climbed down from their tree fort that day, both were buzzing with excitement about their secret camping adventure. Neither one noticed the storm clouds growing darker overhead. Neither one knew that some storms are too powerful to hide from. The last week of July 1973 felt different to Michael Jordan. He couldn't put his finger on exactly what had changed, but something was wrong with Tommy Richardson. For 2 weeks, ever since they had made their camping plans, Tommy seemed nervous. He kept looking over his shoulder when they played together. His laugh didn't sound as happy as before. Sometimes Michael would catch Tommy staring off into space with a worried look on his freckled face. "You okay?" Michael asked one afternoon as they sat in their tree fort counting their allowance money. "Yeah, I'm fine," Tommy said quickly. But his hands were shaking as he counted his quarters and dimes. They had been saving up to buy camping supplies from Rose's department store on Market Street. The plan was simple but exciting. They would tell their parents they were sleeping at each other's houses on Friday night. Then they would sneak out at midnight and meet at their secret spot in the woods behind Sunset Park. Michael had been there twice before with Tommy during the day. It was perfect for camping, hidden from the main park by thick trees, but close enough to civilization that they wouldn't get lost. There was even a small clearing where they could build a campfire. "We got enough money for marshmallows, hot dogs, and 2 flashlights," Michael said, adding up their coins. "This is gonna be the best adventure ever." Tommy nodded, but he didn't look excited anymore.
"Yeah."
The best. That Wednesday, something happened that made Michael worry even more. He was walking past the Sunset Park Community Center when he heard voices through an open window. One of them sounded like Tommy. Michael crept closer to listen. The community center was for white families only. Michael had never been inside, though he walked past it almost every day. There was no sign that said whites only. But everyone knew the rules. "You better not mess this up, Tommy," said a voice Michael didn't recognize. It sounded like an older boy, maybe a teenager. "I won't mess up," Tommy replied. His voice sounded scared. "Jake's counting on you," said another voice. "We all are. That Jordan boy needs to learn his place." Michael's stomach dropped. Jake was Tommy's older brother. He was 16 and hung around with tough kids from the neighborhood. Michael had always stayed away from Jake because something about him seemed mean. "I know," Tommy said quietly. "I'll do what you want." Michael backed away from the window, his heart pounding. What were they talking about? What did Jake want Tommy to do? And why were they talking about Michael? He wanted to ask Tommy about it, but something told him to stay quiet. Maybe he had heard wrong. Maybe it wasn't about him at all. But that night at dinner, Michael couldn't stop thinking about what he had heard. "You seem quiet tonight, baby," his mama said, passing him more green beans. "Everything okay?" "Yes, ma'am," Michael said, just thinking about stuff. His older brother Larry looked at him suspiciously. "That white boy of yours been acting funny lately. I seen him around the neighborhood looking all nervous and jumpy." "Tommy's fine," Michael said, but even as he said it, he wasn't sure it was true. "Maybe y'all should be more careful," Larry said. "Some folks in this neighborhood don't like seeing black kids and white kids playing together." Larry, their daddy warned. Don't go putting ideas in the boy's head. But Michael was already thinking about Larry's words. He had heard the whispers from neighbors. He had seen the dirty looks some people gave when he and Tommy walked together. He just never thought it would affect their friendship. Friday afternoon finally arrived. Michael packed his small backpack with everything they had bought: peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a bag of marshmallows, 2 candy bars, matches for the fire, and his most treasured possession, his 1968 Willie Mays baseball card. He always carried that card with him on special occasions. Willie Mays was his hero, and the card made him feel brave and lucky. Tommy came over around dinner time to go through the plan one more time. "Remember," Tommy said, sitting on Michael's bed, "we tell our parents we're sleeping at each other's houses. Then we sneak out at midnight and meet at the camping spot." "I got it," Michael said. "Are you sure you're okay? You've been acting weird all week." Tommy's face went red. "I'm not acting weird, I'm just excited about camping." But Tommy didn't look excited. He looked scared and guilty, like he had done something wrong. "Tommy, if you don't want to go camping, we don't have to," Michael said. "We could just have a sleepover like normal." "No," Tommy said quickly. "I want to go camping. It's gonna be great, just like we planned." After Tommy left, Michael's mama came into his room. "You be careful tonight," she said, kissing his forehead. Tommy's mama called to make sure it was okay for him to sleep over here. Michael felt a little guilty about lying to his parents, but the camping trip would be worth it. Besides, they weren't really doing anything dangerous, just sleeping under the stars and telling ghost stories. At 11:45 p.m., Michael crept out of his house carrying his backpack. The night was warm and humid. Crickets chirped loudly in the darkness. A few streetlights cast long shadows across Gordon Road. Tommy's house was dark and quiet. Michael waited by their oak tree, looking up at Tommy's bedroom window for the flashlight signal they had agreed on. At exactly midnight, the flashlight blinked 3 times from Tommy's window. Michael grinned and started walking towards Sunset Park. His heart was pounding with excitement. This was going to be the best adventure he and Tommy had ever shared. He couldn't wait to build their campfire and roast marshmallows. He couldn't wait to lie on his back and look at the stars with his best friend. He couldn't wait to tell Tommy about his dreams of playing professional baseball someday. As Michael walked through the dark streets of Wilmington, he had no idea that he was walking into a trap. He had no idea that Jake Richardson and 5 other older boys were already waiting in the woods. He had no idea that his best friend had betrayed him. All Michael knew was that Tommy had given the signal. Tommy was coming to meet him. Tommy would never let him down. But sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us worst. Michael reached their secret camping spot first. The woods behind Sunset Park were darker than he expected. Tall pine trees blocked most of the moonlight, making strange shadows dance on the ground. But Michael wasn't scared. He was too excited about his adventure with Tommy. He found their clearing and spread out his sleeping bag on the soft pine needles. The air smelled like trees and summer night. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted softly. Michael smiled as he arranged his supplies. This was going to be perfect. 20 minutes passed before Tommy finally showed up. Even in the dim moonlight, Michael could see that his friend looked different. Tommy's face was pale and sweaty. His hands were shaking as he dropped his backpack. "You okay?" Michael asked, jumping up to greet his best friend. Tommy nodded quickly but wouldn't look Michael in the eyes. "Yeah, it took me longer to sneak out than I thought." "That's okay," Michael said happily. "We got all night. Help me get the campfire ready." They worked together to gather small sticks and dry leaves. But something felt wrong. Tommy kept checking his watch, something he never did during their adventures. He answered Michael's questions with short words instead of his usual excited chatter. "Remember when we built that fort in your backyard?" Michael asked, trying to get Tommy talking like normal. "Yeah," Tommy said. "And remember when we caught that baby bird with the broken wing and nursed it back to health?" "Uh-huh." Michael stopped gathering sticks and looked at his friend. "Tommy, what's wrong? You've been acting weird all week." "Nothing's wrong," Tommy said, but his voice sounded funny. "I'm just tired." They got their small campfire going and sat down on their sleeping bags. Michael pulled out the sandwiches his mama had made and offered one to Tommy. But Tommy barely ate anything. "Tell me about becoming a pilot again," Michael said. hoping to cheer up his friend. Tommy shrugged. I don't know if I want to be a pilot anymore. This was very strange. Tommy always got excited when he talked about flying airplanes. It was his biggest dream. At 1:30 in the morning, Tommy suddenly stood up. I forgot something at home. I'll be right back. Michael was confused. What did you forget? We have everything we need. Just something important, Tommy said, not looking at Michael. Wait here. Don't move. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Tommy, that don't make sense, Michael said. If you go home now, your parents might catch you sneaking back in. Just wait here, Tommy said more sharply than he had ever spoken to Michael before. Before Michael could ask any more questions, Tommy disappeared into the dark woods, leaving Michael alone by the dying campfire. Michael sat by himself, feeling worried and confused. This wasn't how their camping trip was supposed to go. Tommy was acting like a completely different person. Where was the happy, excited boy who loved adventures? 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. Michael started to get scared. What if Tommy got lost in the dark? What if he fell and hurt himself? What if his parents caught him and grounded him forever? At 2:15 in the morning, Michael heard voices coming through the trees. He smiled with relief. Tommy was finally coming back. Maybe he had brought more snacks from his house. But as the voices got closer, Michael realized there were too many of them, and they didn't sound friendly. 6 older white boys stepped out of the shadows into the firelight. Michael recognized some of them from around the neighborhood. The leader was Jake Richardson, Tommy's 16-year-old brother. He was tall and mean-looking with dark hair and cold eyes. Well, Jake said with a nasty smile. Look what we got here. A little lost boy in the wrong place. Michael's heart started beating fast. Where's Tommy? Tommy's where he belongs, said another boy Michael didn't know. This boy was skinny with long brown hair, safe at home with his own kind. Tommy's my friend, Michael said, trying to sound brave even though he was getting scared. Jake laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. Tommy don't have no black friends. That was just pretend. A game. And now the game's over. The 6 boys moved closer, making a circle around Michael and the campfire. Michael clutched his backpack and looked for a way to run. But they had him surrounded. You've been thinking you're something special, Jake continued. Acting like you belong in our neighborhood. Playing with our kids. Swimming in our river. Your kind needs to learn their place. This ain't your neighborhood, Michael said, his voice shaking. My family lives here too. Not for long, said the skinny boy in a threatening voice. Michael's mind was racing with fear and confusion. Where was Tommy? Why wasn't Tommy here to help him? These were Tommy's friends and family. Tommy could tell them to stop. I want to see Tommy, Michael said, as loudly as he could. Tommy, where are you? Oh, you want to see Tommy? Jake grinned. Tommy's right here. The circle of boys opened up, and Tommy stepped forward from behind a large pine tree. But this wasn't the Tommy that Michael knew. This Tommy looked ashamed and scared, but he also looked relieved. Tommy? Michael's voice cracked with disbelief. For the first time that night, Tommy looked directly at Michael. His eyes were red like he had been crying, but his face was hard. I'm sorry, Michael, Tommy said quietly. I didn't want to do this, but Jake said I had to. Michael felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Do what? Tommy, what's happening? Tell him, Tommy, Jake ordered his younger brother. Tell him the truth. Tommy took a deep breath. The camping trip was fake. Jake and his friends wanted to get you alone out here. Away from your house. Away from help. Michael stared at his best friend in complete shock. But we planned this together. You wanted to go camping. No, Tommy said, his voice barely a whisper. Jake made me pretend to be your friend. He made me find out your plans and your secrets. This whole thing was a trap. The words hit Michael like lightning. Every adventure they had shared. Every secret they had told each other. Every promise they had made. It was all a lie. Tommy, please, Michael begged, tears starting to fill his eyes. We're best friends. We promised to stick together forever. Tommy looked at his older brother, then back at Michael. That was just pretend too. Michael felt his world falling apart. The boy he trusted most in the world had betrayed him. The friendship he thought was real was just a game. He was alone in the dark woods with 6 older boys who hated him, and his best friend had led him there. "Tommy," Michael whispered one last time. "Please tell me this isn't real." But Tommy just looked away and said nothing. Jake Richardson stepped closer to Michael, his cruel smile growing wider. "You still don't get it, do you? Let me make this real simple for your little brain." Michael wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He was trying hard not to cry in front of these older boys, but his heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. "Tommy was never your friend," Jake continued. "A Richardson being friends with a Jordan, you must be the dumbest kid in Wilmington." "But we played together every day," Michael said desperately. "We built forts and went fishing and shared our secrets." "All fake," said the skinny boy Michael didn't know. "Tommy was just doing what we told him to do." Michael looked at Tommy, hoping his friend would say something, hoping Tommy would tell these boys they were wrong. But Tommy just stared at the ground. "Tell him, Tommy," Jake ordered. "Tell him how we planned this whole thing." Tommy's voice was so quiet that Michael could barely hear him. "Jake said I had to become your friend. He said I had to find out everything about you. Your schedule. Your favorite places. When your parents weren't watching." "Why?" Michael asked, though he was starting to understand the terrible answer. "Because people like you need to learn their place," Jake said. "You've been getting too comfortable in our neighborhood, acting like you belong here. Your family needs to understand that this is a white neighborhood." Dale Murphy, the tall skinny boy, stepped forward. "You've been walking past our community center like you own the place. Swimming in our part of the river. Playing on our side of the park." "It's not your river," Michael said, his sadness turning into anger. "It's not your park. My family has as much right to be here as yours." "No, you don't," Jake said firmly. "And tonight we're going to teach you that lesson." The boys started pushing Michael, not hard enough to really hurt him, but enough to scare him and show him they were in control. They knocked his backpack out of his hands and kicked his sleeping bag into the dirt. "Look at all this camping gear." Dale laughed as he dumped out Michael's backpack. Little boy thought he was going to have a fun adventure. Michael's sandwiches fell into the dirt. His flashlight hit a rock and broke. His candy bars scattered across the ground. But the worst moment came when Dale picked up Michael's most precious possession. "What's this?" Dale asked, holding up the 1968 Willie Mays baseball card. "Give it back," Michael shouted, lunging toward Dale. But Jake pushed Michael down hard. He fell backward and scraped his elbow on a sharp rock. "This your hero?" Dale asked, waving the card in the air. "You think you're gonna be like Willie Mays someday?" "Please don't hurt it," Michael begged. "That's my favorite thing in the whole world." "Here's the problem," Dale said with fake sadness. "You think you're as good as Willie Mays? You think you're as good as us white boys. But you're not. You're just a colored kid who forgot his place." Michael watched in horror as Dale held the baseball card high above his head. "Maybe this will help you remember," Dale said. Then he ripped the Willie Mays card right down the middle. The sound of the card tearing was like a knife in Michael's heart. That card had been his good luck charm. His daddy had given it to him for his 9th birthday. He carried it everywhere because it made him feel brave and special. Now it was destroyed, just like everything else he cared about. Michael started crying, not just from fear, but from the deep pain of watching his most precious thing get ruined by boys who hated him for no good reason. "Ah, look," Jake said in a fake baby voice. "The little boy is crying." "Tommy, please," Michael sobbed, looking at his former best friend. "We promised to stick together forever. Remember? We spit on our hands and shook on it." For just a moment, Tommy's face showed pain. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something. His eyes met Michael's, and Michael saw tears there. But then Jake put his hand on Tommy's shoulder, and Tommy looked away again. "Friends?" Jake laughed loudly. "Boy, Tommy was never your friend. This whole thing was my idea. Every single day for the past 2 years, Tommy has been reporting back to me, telling me what you said, telling me what you did, telling me your plan." Michael felt sick to his stomach. "That's not true." "Oh, it's true," Jake said. "Every time you thought you were having fun with Tommy, he was really working for us. Learning your habits, finding out your weaknesses, setting you up for this moment." Michael's mind raced back through all their adventures. The fishing trips, the bike rides, the secret handshakes, the promises of forever friendship. Had all of it been fake? Tommy kept a notebook. Dale added cruelly. Writing down everything you told him. Every secret. Every fear. Every dream. Show him the notebook, Tommy, Jake ordered. Tommy reached into his pocket and pulled out a small blue notebook. Michael recognized it immediately. He had seen Tommy writing in it many times. Tommy always said he was writing stories or drawing pictures. Read some of it out loud, Jake demanded. Tommy opened the notebook with shaking hands. Michael's favorite hiding spot is the oak tree between our houses. He always carries his Willie Mays card in his left pocket. He's scared of the dark but tries to act brave. He trusts me completely. Each word felt like a slap in the face. Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. Keep reading, Jake said. Michael told me his biggest secret today. Tommy continued reading. He said sometimes he feels different from other black kids because he has a white best friend. He said he doesn't understand why some people care about skin color. Michael remembered telling Tommy that secret. It was during one of their private talks in the tree fort. Michael had been worried about what other kids thought of their friendship. Tommy had hugged him and said skin color didn't matter between real friends. But it had all been a lie. One more, Jake said, enjoying Michael's pain. Michael said he wants to be famous someday so that everyone will respect him, Tommy read. He said having a best friend like me makes him feel like he can do anything. The words cut deeper than any physical pain could. Michael had shared his deepest dreams with Tommy. He had trusted Tommy with his heart and soul. And Tommy had written it all down like he was studying a bug under a microscope. Now you understand, Jake said with satisfaction. Tommy never cared about you. You were just a project, a way for him to help his real friends, us. Michael looked at Tommy one last time. His former best friend was crying now. But he still wouldn't defend Michael or take back any of the cruel things the other boys were saying. Tommy, Michael whispered, is it all true? Was our whole friendship just pretend? Tommy looked up with tears streaming down his face. For a moment, Michael hoped Tommy would say no. Hoped Tommy would admit that some of their friendship had been real. Instead, Tommy spoke the word that would haunt Michael Jordan for the rest of his life. Yes. The word yes hit Michael harder than any punch ever could. He stopped crying. He stopped begging. He just stared at Tommy in complete shock. For a moment, the woods were completely quiet except for the crackling of their dying campfire. Even the crickets seemed to stop chirping. Michael felt like the whole world had just stopped moving. Good, Jake said, breaking the terrible silence. Now that we got that straight, it's time to teach this boy a lesson he won't forget. The 6 older boys formed a tighter circle around Michael. But they were smart. They didn't hit him or hurt him in ways that would leave marks. They knew that kind of evidence might get them in trouble with their parents. Instead, they found crueler ways to hurt him. Pick up your stuff, Jake ordered, pointing at Michael's scattered belongings. Michael didn't move. He was still trying to understand what had just happened. His best friend had just told him their entire friendship was a lie. I said, pick it up, Jake shouted. Slowly, Michael began gathering his things. His broken flashlight, his dirty sandwiches, the 2 pieces of his torn Willie Mays card. His hands were shaking as he put everything back in his backpack. While you're doing that, Dale said with a mean smile, say you're sorry. Sorry for what? Michael asked quietly. Sorry for bothering our neighborhood, Jake said. Sorry for thinking you could be friends with white kids. Sorry for not knowing your place. Michael wanted to refuse. He wanted to tell these boys that he had done nothing wrong, that his family belonged in Wilmington just as much as theirs did, that friendship shouldn't depend on skin color. But he was 10 years old and surrounded by 6 teenagers in the middle of dark woods, and his best friend, the person he had trusted most in the world, was standing with them against him. I'm sorry, Michael whispered. Louder, Dale demanded. I'm sorry, Michael said again, louder this time. Sorry for what? Jake asked. Michael felt sick saying the words, but he was too scared and heartbroken to fight anymore. Sorry for bothering your neighborhood. And, Jake pressed. Sorry for not knowing my place, Michael said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. The boys smiled with satisfaction. They were enjoying making Michael say things he didn't believe. They were enjoying having power over him. Now promise us something, Jake said. Promise you won't play with Tommy anymore. Michael looked at Tommy one more time. Part of him hoped Tommy would speak up now. would say that he still wanted to be friends, even if his older brother didn't like it. But Tommy said nothing. He just stared at his shoes like a coward. "I promise," Michael said. "If we see you talking to Tommy again," Jake threatened, "next time won't be so easy. We'll make sure your whole family knows they ain't welcome in this neighborhood." Dale looked at his watch. "It's almost 3 a.m. We need to get home before our folks wake up and find out we're gone." "What about him?" asked one of the other boys, pointing at Michael. "He's gonna walk home," Jake said, "in the dark, by himself. And he's gonna think real hard about what happened tonight." As the older boys started to leave, Jake turned back to Michael one more time. "And if you tell anybody about tonight, your parents, your teachers, anybody, will know. Tommy will tell us. Won't you, Tommy?" Tommy nodded sadly but said nothing. "Remember," Jake added, "Tommy's one of us now. He always was. You were just too stupid to see it." Then they disappeared into the dark woods, leaving Michael completely alone. Michael sat by the dying campfire for a long time. He tried to understand what had just happened. Yesterday, Tommy was his best friend. They had secret handshakes and shared dreams. Today, Tommy had betrayed him to a group of boys who hated Michael just because of his skin color. The worst part wasn't the threats or the name-calling. The worst part was realizing that he had never really known Tommy at all. Every laugh they had shared, every secret they had told, every promise they had made. It was all part of a cruel game. Michael picked up the 2 pieces of his Willie Mays card. In the dim firelight, he could barely see Willie's face on the torn paper. But holding the broken card reminded him of better times. Times when he believed in heroes and friendship and fairness. Those times were over now. The walk home took almost an hour because Michael got lost twice in the dark. Every shadow looked scary. Every sound made him jump. But the scariest thing wasn't the dark woods. It was the terrible feeling that he would never be able to trust anyone again. When he finally reached his house on Gordon Road, Michael crept through the back door and up to his bedroom. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling until the sun came up, holding the 2 pieces of his baseball card. That morning at breakfast, his mama noticed he looked tired. "You feeling okay, honey?" Dolores asked, setting a plate of eggs in front of him. Michael almost told her everything. Almost explained about the camping trip and the trap and the older boys and Tommy's terrible betrayal. The words were right there in his throat, ready to come out. But then he remembered Jake's threat. If he told his parents, Jake and his friends would make trouble for his whole family. They might have to move away from Wilmington. His parents might never let him out of their sight again. "I'm fine, Mama," Michael lied. But he wasn't fine. Something deep inside him had changed forever. The trusting, innocent 10-year-old boy was gone. In his place was someone harder and more careful. Someone who had learned that people could smile at you while planning to hurt you. "You sure?" his mama asked, studying his face with worried eyes. "You look like you didn't sleep much." "Just had some weird dreams," Michael said. It wasn't really a lie. The whole night felt like a terrible nightmare. He kept hoping he would wake up and find out none of it had really happened. That afternoon, Michael saw Tommy playing in his front yard. When Tommy noticed Michael watching from his bedroom window, Tommy waved like nothing had happened, like they were still friends. Michael didn't wave back. He closed his curtains and stayed in his room for the rest of the day. From that moment on, Michael Jordan made himself 2 promises. First, he would never trust anyone completely again. And second, he would never let anyone make him feel small and powerless like those boys had made him feel in the woods. He was going to become so strong and so successful that nobody would ever be able to hurt him again. 3 weeks passed. After that terrible night in the woods, Michael hadn't spoken to Tommy once, even though they lived just 3 houses apart and saw each other almost every day. The silence between them was loud and heavy. Other kids in the neighborhood started to notice something was wrong. "What happened to you and Tommy?" asked Keisha Williams one afternoon. She was a black girl who lived down the street and had always been friendly with Michael. "Nothing happened," Michael said quickly. "We just ain't friends no more." "But y'all were best friends," Keisha said, confused. "Y'all did everything together." "People change," Michael said, walking away before she could ask more questions. But lying about it made Michael feel even worse. Every time someone asked about Tommy, Michael had to pretend like their friendship had just naturally ended. He couldn't tell anyone the truth about the camping trip, or the betrayal, or the notebook full of his secrets. The hardest part was keeping the secret from his family. Michael had always been close to his parents and his older brother Larry. They knew something was wrong, but Michael couldn't tell them. Michael's been different lately, his daddy James Jordan said to his mama one evening. Michael was supposed to be doing homework in his room, but he heard them talking in the kitchen. How so? His mama asked. Quieter. More serious. He don't laugh as much as he used to. Maybe he's just growing up, Dolores said. But Michael could hear the worry in her voice. 10 years old is too young to be that serious all the time, James replied. Michael felt bad about making his parents worry. But he couldn't risk telling them the truth. Jake Richardson had made it clear what would happen if Michael talked. At school, Michael threw himself into his studies. Without Tommy to play with every day, he had more time for homework and reading. His grades got better, but his teacher, Mrs. Patricia Williams, was concerned. Michael used to be more social, she told his parents during a conference. He had lots of friends and was always laughing and joking around. Now he keeps to himself most of the time. Is he having trouble with other students? Dolores asked. Not trouble exactly, Mrs. Williams said. He's just withdrawn. Like he's built a wall around himself. Mrs. Williams was right. Michael had built a wall. Every day, that wall got a little higher and a little stronger. He still talked to other kids and played with them sometimes, but he never let anyone get too close. He never shared secrets or made promises about being friends forever. The worst times were Sundays at church. The Jordan family and the Richardson family both went to St. Stephen AME Church every week. Before the camping trip, Michael and Tommy used to sit together during service. They would share hymnals and pass notes, and try not to giggle during the long sermons. Now Michael sat with his family while Tommy sat with his. Sometimes Michael would catch Tommy staring at him from across the church. Tommy always looked sad and guilty, but Michael had learned not to trust those expressions. One Sunday in late August, something happened that made Michael's heart race with fear. After the service, Tommy's daddy, Robert Richardson, walked over to talk to Michael's daddy. James, Robert said, I gotta ask you something. What happened between our boys? Tommy's been moping around the house for weeks. Says Michael won't play with him anymore. Michael's stomach dropped. This was exactly what Jake had threatened would happen. If adults started asking questions, Jake would blame Michael for causing trouble. James Jordan looked down at his son, who was standing nearby pretending to read a church bulletin. Michael, you want to explain what's going on between you and Tommy? Michael's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. His mouth felt dry. His hands started sweating. He looked across the church parking lot and saw Jake Richardson leaning against his family's car, watching the conversation with cold eyes. Jake's message was clear. Say the wrong thing, and you'll pay for it. We just don't want to be friends anymore, Michael said carefully. Robert Richardson looked confused and hurt. But you boys were inseparable. What could have happened to change that? Sometimes friendships just end, James Jordan said, though it was clear he didn't understand it either. Well, if you change your mind, Michael, Tommy would love to play with you again, Robert said kindly. Michael nodded politely but said nothing. He couldn't tell this nice man that his older son had organized a racist attack on Michael. He couldn't explain that Tommy had betrayed him after 2 years of fake friendship. That night, Michael heard his parents talking in their bedroom again. Something happened between those boys, his daddy said. Something Michael won't tell us about. Should we push him to talk? His mama asked. No, James said. If we push too hard, he'll just shut down more. When he's ready, he'll tell us. But Michael knew he would never be ready to talk about it. The shame was too deep. Not just the shame of being tricked and humiliated, but the shame of being so completely wrong about someone he trusted. Late that night, Michael took the 2 pieces of his torn Willie Mays card from his desk drawer. He had been carrying them everywhere, like a reminder of what happened when you trusted the wrong people. He made a decision. Using tape from his school supplies, he carefully put the card back together. The tear was still visible, a permanent scar right down the middle of Willie Mays's face. But the card was whole again. I ain't gonna let 'em break me, Michael whispered to the taped-up card. I ain't gonna let nobody break me ever again. The card became a symbol for Michael. It was damaged but not destroyed. Hurt, but still valuable. Just like him. As the weeks turned into months, Michael got stronger and more determined. He practiced basketball at the playground behind his school until it was too dark to see the hoop. He studied harder than any other kid in his class. He pushed himself to be better at everything, but he also got more guarded. He made new friends at school, but he never let them get too close. He was friendly and polite, but he never shared his deepest thoughts or feelings with anyone. One day in late September, Keisha Williams tried again to get Michael to open up. "Michael, I know something bad happened between you and Tommy," she said. "You've been different ever since y'all stopped being friends. You don't smile as much, you don't trust nobody." Michael looked at Keisha for a long moment. She had always been kind to him. If he could trust anyone with the truth, it should be her. "Some things are better left alone," he finally said. "But you're hurting," Keisha said. "I can see it, and keeping secrets just makes the hurt worse." "Maybe hurting is better than being stupid," Michael replied. "Maybe trusting people too much is what gets you hurt in the first place." That evening, as Michael walked home from basketball practice, he saw Tommy and Jake walking together down Gordon Road. When Tommy spotted Michael, he raised his hand in a small wave. So small that Jake didn't notice. Michael stared at Tommy for several seconds. Part of him wanted to wave back. Part of him missed the friendship they used to have, even if it had been a lie. But then he remembered the camping trip. He remembered Tommy reading from his notebook. He remembered Tommy saying yes when asked if their friendship was pretend. Michael turned away without waving back. That night, he wrote in the journal his teacher had assigned, "Today I learned that being strong is better than being trusting. Tomorrow I'm going to be even stronger." Fall arrived in Wilmington with cooler air and changing leaves. Michael started 6th grade at DC Virgo Preparatory School, while Tommy went to Sunset Elementary across town. For the first time in 2 years, they wouldn't see each other every day. Michael was glad about the separation. It made it easier to pretend that Tommy Richardson had never existed. Without Tommy as a distraction, Michael threw himself into everything with fierce determination. His grades shot up to straight A's. He joined the school basketball team even though he was still shorter than most players his age. But the biggest change was in Michael's personality. The happy, trusting boy was gone forever. In his place was someone harder, more focused, and determined to prove himself to the world. His basketball coach, Mr. Fred Lynch, noticed the change immediately. "That Jordan boy plays angry," he told another teacher after practice one day. "Like he's got something to prove to everybody." Michael did have something to prove. Every time he stepped onto the basketball court, he remembered that night in the woods. He remembered feeling small and powerless while older boys laughed at him. He never wanted to feel that way again, so he practiced harder than any other kid on the team. He stayed after school shooting baskets until it was too dark to see. He came home and practiced dribbling in his bedroom until his parents told him to stop, because the noise was bothering the neighbors. "You getting good, little brother," his older brother Larry said one evening after watching Michael sink 15 free throws in a row. "Real good." "Good ain't enough," Michael replied, grabbing the ball and setting up for another shot. "I gotta be the best." Larry was surprised by the intensity in his little brother's voice. "Why you pushing yourself so hard?" "It's just a game." "It ain't just a game," Michael said, making another perfect shot. "It's everything." His improvement came with a price, though. Michael became obsessed with winning. He got angry when he missed shots. He argued with referees during games. He pushed himself and his teammates harder than kids their age should be pushed. Michael's becoming a perfectionist. His mama told his daddy one evening, "Everything has to be exactly right or he gets upset." James Jordan watched his son practice alone in the backyard and saw something that worried him. He's trying to control everything he can because he feels like he can't control anything else. Neither parent understood how right James was. Michael had learned that people could betray you when you least expected it, so he decided to depend only on himself. If he was good enough, strong enough, perfect enough, nobody could hurt him the way Tommy had. At school, Michael made new friends, but he kept them at arm's length. He was friendly with everyone but close to no one. He would join group activities and laugh at jokes, but he never shared personal stories or deep thoughts. His teacher, Mrs. Sandra Hayes, noticed this too. "Michael is well liked by his classmates," she wrote in his report card, "but he seems reluctant to form close friendships." One day in November, his old friend Keisha Williams cornered him after basketball practice. "Michael, why won't you tell nobody what really happened between you and Tommy?" she asked directly. Michael looked at her for a long moment. Keisha had always been kind to him. She was smart and funny and trustworthy. If anyone deserved to know the truth, it was her. "Some things are better left buried," he finally said. "But you're different now," Keisha insisted. "You don't smile as much. You don't trust nobody. It's like you're scared of getting close to people." "Maybe that's better," Michael replied. "Maybe trusting people too much gets you hurt. Not all people are bad, Michael. Some of us really care about you." Michael wanted to believe her. Part of him missed having someone to share secrets with. But every time he thought about opening up to someone, he remembered Tommy's notebook. He remembered how all his private thoughts had been written down and shared with his enemies. "I don't need people to care about me," Michael said. "I just need to take care of myself." That evening, something happened that tested Michael's new philosophy. He was walking home from the playground when he saw a familiar figure coming down Gordon Road. Tommy Richardson was walking toward him. Alone. For 2 months, they had managed to avoid each other completely. But now there was nowhere to hide. They were going to have to face each other on the same sidewalk. As they got closer, Michael's heart started beating faster. He thought about crossing the street to avoid Tommy, but that would look like he was running away. Michael Jordan didn't run from anybody anymore. When they were about 10 feet apart, Tommy stopped walking. "Hi, Michael," Tommy said quietly. Michael stopped too, but said nothing. He just stared at the boy who used to be his best friend. Tommy looked terrible. He had lost weight, and his usually bright eyes were sad and tired. "I've been wanting to talk to you for months." "We got nothing to talk about," Michael said coldly. "Yes, we do," Tommy said, taking a step closer. "I want to explain what happened that night. I want to tell you why I did what I did." "I already know why," Michael replied. "You did it because Jake told you to. You did it because you never really cared about me." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "That ain't true. The friendship was real for me, Michael. I know I messed up bad at the end, but everything before that was real." "Don't lie to me," Michael said. "You kept a notebook about me. You wrote down everything I told you. You've been spying on me for 2 years. Jake made me do that," Tommy said desperately. "He said if I didn't help him, he would make life terrible for our whole family. He said he would tell everyone I was a traitor to my own race." Michael felt a flicker of something. Maybe understanding, maybe pity, but he pushed it down. He couldn't afford to feel sorry for Tommy Richardson. "You had a choice," Michael said. "When those boys were hurting me, you could have stood up for me. When they asked if our friendship was pretend, you could have said no. But you didn't." "I was scared," Tommy whispered. "So was I," Michael said. "But I would have stood up for you." Tommy nodded sadly. "I know you would have. That's what makes this so bad. You were a better friend to me than I was to you." For a moment, Michael almost felt sorry for Tommy, almost forgave him, almost remembered what it felt like to care about someone else's feelings. But then he remembered the torn Willie Mays card. He remembered walking home alone in the dark woods. He remembered the promise he had made to himself. "I gotta go," Michael said, starting to walk past Tommy. "Michael, wait," Tommy called after him. "Can't we try to be friends again? I know I don't deserve it, but..." "No," Michael said without turning around. "We can't. I don't need friends who might betray me." As he walked away, Michael heard Tommy crying behind him. Part of him wanted to turn around and comfort the boy who used to be his best friend. But Michael Jordan had learned to ignore that part of himself. Caring about people was dangerous. Trusting people was stupid. The only person he could count on was himself. And that was exactly how he was going to keep it. By spring 1974, 11-year-old Michael Jordan had transformed himself into one of the best young athletes in Wilmington. He was the star of his school basketball team, despite being shorter than most players his age. His competitive drive amazed everyone who watched him play. "That boy hates to lose more than he loves to win," Coach Lynch told other coaches in the district. "Never seen anything like it in a kid so young." Michael's academic performance was equally impressive. He finished 6th grade near the top of his class, spent extra time in the library, and never missed a homework assignment. His teachers praised his focus and determination, but those closest to Michael noticed that his success came with a cost. He had friends, but no best friend. He was popular, but not close to anyone. It's like he's got an invisible wall around himself, his brother Larry observed to their parents. Nobody can get through it. The wall became most obvious during family gatherings. Extended family members commented on how serious and grown-up Michael had become. He used to be such a happy, playful little boy, his grandmother said during Easter dinner. Now he's all business all the time. Michael overheard these conversations but didn't care. Being all business had made him successful. Being playful and trusting had gotten him hurt. His parents worried about the change in their son, but they didn't know how to help him. When they asked direct questions, Michael gave them polite but distant answers. When they tried to get him to open up, he found ways to change the subject. Sometimes I feel like I don't know my own son anymore, Dolores told James one evening. He's become so independent, so alone. Maybe we should take him to talk to someone, James suggested. A counselor or somebody. You know how proud that boy is, Dolores replied. He'd never agree to that. He'd see it as admitting weakness. She was right. Michael had built his new identity around being strong enough that he didn't need help from anyone. Asking for help would go against everything he had taught himself to believe. In late April, something happened that tested Michael's new philosophy about keeping people at a distance. The Richardson family announced they were moving away from Wilmington. Robert Richardson had gotten a job in Charlotte, and they would be leaving at the end of the school year. The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. Most people were sorry to see the Richardsons go. They were a well-liked family who had been good neighbors to everyone. Michael heard the news from Keisha Williams. Tommy's family is moving to Charlotte next month, she told him after school one day. Michael's face showed no emotion. Good for them. Ain't you gonna miss him at all? Keisha asked. Y'all used to be so close. I don't miss people who were never really my friends, Michael said. But that wasn't completely true. Late at night, when he couldn't sleep, Michael sometimes remembered the good times he and Tommy had shared. Building forts in the oak tree, fishing at the Cape Fear River, sharing secrets and dreams about the future. Then he would remember that it had all been fake, and the brief moment of nostalgia would disappear. 2 weeks before the Richardsons were scheduled to move, Tommy knocked on the Jordans' front door. Michael answered, and for a moment the two former friends just looked at each other. Tommy was holding a wrapped present. I wanted to give you this before we leave, he said quietly. Michael stared at the gift but didn't take it. What is it? It's a new Willie Mays card. A 1974 Topps rookie card.
I know it got messed up that night.
The memory of his torn baseball card flashed through Michael's mind. He still had the taped-up pieces in his desk drawer, but it had never looked the same. I don't want it, Michael said. Michael, please, Tommy said, his voice cracking. I know you hate me. I know I messed up worse than anybody ever has. But I wanted you to know that the good times we had were real. At least for me, they were real. Michael felt something twist in his chest, but he forced his face to stay hard. If they were real, you wouldn't have done what you did. Jake made me. Nobody made you do nothing, Michael interrupted. You chose to trick me. You chose to watch them hurt me. You chose to say our friendship was pretend. Tommy's eyes filled with tears. You're right, I was scared of Jake and his friends, so I hurt you instead. I've been feeling terrible about it every single day since. Good, Michael said coldly. You should feel terrible. Tommy set the wrapped card down on the porch step. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday you can trust people again. As Tommy walked away, Michael watched him go. Part of him wanted to call out, to take the gift, to give Tommy a chance to explain everything that had happened that night in the woods. But the stronger part of him, the part that had learned to depend only on himself, picked up the wrapped card and threw it in the trash can by the front door. That evening, his mother found the gift while taking out the garbage. Michael, honey, why did you throw this away? She asked, holding up the wrapped package. I don't want nothing from Tommy Richardson, Michael replied. Dolores sat down next to her son on the living room couch. Baby, what happened between you and that boy? And don't tell me nothing, because something definitely happened. Michael looked at his mother's caring face. For a moment, he considered telling her everything about the camping trip, the betrayal, the night that changed him from a trusting child into someone who depended only on himself. But then he thought about what good it would do. Tommy was moving away. The damage was already done. Talking about it would only upset his parents and make them worry about him even more. He just wasn't the friend I thought he was, Michael said. It was the most honest thing he had said about the situation, and his mother seemed to understand that it was all she was gonna get. Sometimes people disappoint us, Dolores said gently. But that doesn't mean we should give up on friendship altogether. I ain't given up on nothing, Michael said. I just learned to be more careful about who I trust. There's a difference between being careful and building walls so high that nobody can reach you, his mother said. Michael didn't respond to that. He had built walls, and he was proud of them. Those walls had protected him from being hurt again. They had helped him focus on becoming successful. They had made him strong. The next week, the Richardson family moved to Charlotte. Michael watched from his bedroom window as they loaded their furniture into a moving truck. Tommy looked up at Michael's window several times, but Michael never came outside to say goodbye. That night, Michael wrote in his journal, "Tommy Richardson is gone. I will never have to to him again. This is the best thing that could have happened." But as he wrote those words, Michael didn't notice that his hand was shaking slightly. The same shake that would appear decades later when he held photographs of his childhood. The 11-year-old boy who had once trusted completely was gone forever. In his place was someone who would achieve incredible success, but who would always struggle to let people get close to his heart. And Michael Jordan convinced himself that was exactly the way he wanted it. Years passed like pages turning in a book. Michael Jordan became a basketball legend at Emsley A. Laney High School in Wilmington. His athletic achievements were remarkable, but the emotional walls he had built as an 11-year-old boy remained as high as ever. His high school girlfriend, a pretty girl named Angela Davis, was the first person to really notice how guarded he had become. "Sometimes I feel like I don't really know you," she told him during their senior year. "Like you're always holding something back." Michael's response was typical of the young man he had become. "You know me fine. What more do you need to know?" But Angela was right. Even in his closest relationships, Michael kept part of himself locked away. He had learned to be charming, funny, and engaging, but never completely open or vulnerable. His high school basketball coach, Fred Lynch, who had also coached him in elementary school, saw the same pattern. "Michael's the most determined player I've ever coached," he told a reporter from the Wilmington Star-News. "But he don't let nobody get too close. He's friendly with everyone, close to no one." Coach Lynch remembered the happy, trusting 10-year-old boy who used to play basketball with such joy. That boy was gone, replaced by someone who played with anger and determination, as if every game was a battle he had to win to prove his worth. The pattern continued when Michael went to the University of North Carolina. He became a star player under Coach Dean Smith and was well liked by his teammates, but even they noticed something different about him. During individual meetings with players, Coach Smith often tried to understand what drove Michael's intense need to control everything around him. "Michael, you seem to have trouble really trusting your teammates," Coach Smith observed during Michael's sophomore year. "I trust them to do their jobs," Michael replied carefully. "That's not what I mean," Smith said, leaning forward in his chair. "You trust their basketball skills, but you don't trust them as people. You don't open up to them. You don't let them support you when you're struggling." Michael shrugged, a habit he had developed whenever conversations got too personal. "I don't need support. I need to get better." Everyone needs support, Michael. That's what teammates are for. But Michael had learned long ago that depending on other people was dangerous. People could smile at you while planning to hurt you. People could promise to be your friend while writing down your secrets in notebooks. People could look you in the eye and lie. This attitude served Michael well on the basketball court. His self-reliance and competitive drive made him an exceptional player. He learned to depend on his own abilities rather than hoping others wouldn't let him down. But it cost him in his personal relationships. College friends described him as fun to be around, but impossible to really know. "Michael's got this charm that makes you feel like you're close to him," said his UNC teammate James Worthy years later. But then you realize he ain't told you nothing personal about himself. During his junior year at UNC, Michael started dating a young woman named Juanita Vanoy. More seriously, she was one of the few people who challenged his emotional distance directly. "Why won't you talk to me about your childhood?" she asked him one evening as they walked across campus. "What's to talk about? I had a good childhood. My family loves me. I played sports. End of story. But what about friends? What about the kids you grew up with? You never mention anybody from back then." Michael's face hardened slightly, a change so subtle that most people wouldn't notice. But Juanita was learning to read his expressions. "I don't keep in touch with nobody from back then," he said. "Nobody? Not even your best friend from when you were little?" "I didn't have no best friend," Michael lied. It was the same lie he had been telling for years. He had told it so often that sometimes he almost believed it himself. Almost forgot about Tommy Richardson and the oak tree, and the camping trip that changed everything. But late at night when he couldn't sleep before big games, Michael sometimes remembered what it felt like to trust someone completely. He remembered what it felt like to have a friend who shared your secrets and dreams and promised to stick by you forever. Those memories always made his chest feel tight and his hands shake slightly. So he had learned to push them away quickly, to focus on what he could control: his performance, his success, his carefully managed public image. "You must have had some friends," Juanita pressed gently. "I was focused on basketball in school," Michael said. "Didn't have time for much else." Another lie. But it was easier than explaining about Tommy. Easier than admitting that he had once been naive enough to believe that friendship could cross racial lines without consequences. Easier than revealing the shame he still carried about being so completely fooled. Juanita sensed there was more to the story. But she had learned not to push Michael too hard. When he wanted to close a door on a conversation, that door stayed closed. As Michael's college career progressed and he prepared for the NBA draft, reporters constantly asked about his background, his early influences, his motivation to succeed. Michael had perfected his responses over the years. He would talk about his loving family and his supportive parents. He would mention his high school coaches and the importance of hard work. He would share funny stories about his competitive nature and his determination to prove doubters wrong. But he never mentioned Tommy Richardson. In Michael's carefully constructed personal history, Tommy didn't exist. The camping trip never happened. The betrayal that shaped his entire approach to relationships was a secret he kept locked away. Sometimes, when reporters asked about his childhood friends or early influences, Michael would feel a familiar tightness in his chest. The same feeling he got when he thought about that night in the woods behind Sunset Park. "My family was my influence," he would always say. "My parents and my brothers and sisters. They're the ones who made me who I am." It wasn't technically a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Tommy Richardson had also made Michael who he was, just not in the way a friend should. During his final year at UNC, Michael led his team to the NCAA championship. As he held the trophy after the victory, surrounded by cheering teammates and fans, he should have felt complete happiness. Instead, he felt strangely empty. He had achieved something incredible, but he had no one to truly share it with. His teammates celebrated with him, but they didn't really know the real Michael Jordan. His family was proud, but he had kept them at arm's length too. Even Juanita, who was becoming more important to him, only knew the version of himself he allowed her to see. That night, alone in his hotel room after the championship celebration, Michael thought about Tommy for the first time in months. He wondered where Tommy was now, if he had watched the game, if he remembered their childhood friendship. "I won," Michael whispered to himself in the dark room. "I showed them all. I showed everybody I could make it." But the victory felt hollow because the person he most wanted to prove wrong, the person whose betrayal had motivated so much of his drive to succeed, wasn't there to witness it. Michael had built a life where he was safe from betrayal, but he had also built a life where he was safe from genuine connection. And as he would learn in the years to come, those two things were impossible to separate. Michael Jordan's professional career with the Chicago Bulls brought him fame and success beyond anything he had dreamed of as a child. He became the most recognizable athlete in the world, wealthy beyond measure, surrounded by people who claimed to care about him. But the higher he rose, the more isolated he felt. The wall he had built to protect himself had become a prison. His marriage to Juanita in 1989 was happy in many ways. But she continued to notice the emotional distance that had worried her since college. Even during their wedding day, she observed how Michael kept certain parts of himself locked away from everyone, including her. "Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a ghost," she confided to her sister during their first year of marriage. "Like the real Michael is hiding somewhere I can't reach." As Michael's fame grew with the Chicago Bulls, reporters constantly asked about his childhood, his early influences, his first experiences with basketball. Michael had perfected his responses over the years. Charming stories about his family, his high school coach, his determination to succeed after being cut from his varsity team. But he never mentioned Tommy Richardson. In Michael's official story, Tommy simply didn't exist. The camping trip never happened. The betrayal that shaped his entire approach to relationships remained a secret he had kept for over 20 years. In 1991, after winning his first NBA championship, Michael experienced what should have been the happiest moment of his career. But as he held the championship trophy in the Bulls locker room surrounded by teammates and media, he felt strangely empty. "This is what I worked for my whole life," he told himself as cameras flashed around him. This should be enough. But it wasn't enough, because he had no one to truly share it with. His teammates celebrated with him, but they didn't really know him. His family was proud, but he had kept them at emotional distance too. Even Juanita, the person closest to him, only knew the version of Michael he allowed her to see. That night, alone in his Chicago hotel room, Michael did something he hadn't done in years. He thought about Tommy Richardson. He wondered where Tommy was now, if he was watching the championship celebration on television, if he remembered their childhood friendship. "I won," Michael whispered to himself in the darkness. "I showed them all. I showed everybody they were wrong about me." But the victory felt hollow because the person he most wanted to prove wrong, the person whose betrayal had motivated so much of his success, wasn't there to witness it. The pattern continued through Michael's career. Each championship, each award, each record brought him recognition and admiration, but also deeper loneliness. He became known for his fierce competitiveness, his demanding leadership style, his refusal to accept anything less than perfection from himself and his teammates. Sports writers and psychologists would later describe this as using external achievement to fill an internal void. Michael had become the greatest basketball player who ever lived, partly because he was trying to heal a wound that success couldn't touch. His teammates learned to respect his talent, but found him difficult to connect with personally. "Michael was friendly, but he wasn't your friend," former Bulls player Horace Grant said years later. "He kept everybody at the same distance." In 1993, after winning his third consecutive championship, tragedy struck Michael's life. His father, James Jordan Sr., was murdered during a robbery while traveling through North Carolina. The loss devastated Michael and forced him to confront emotions he had spent decades suppressing. At the funeral, surrounded by family and friends offering their support, Michael realized how alone he had made himself. He had spent so much energy protecting himself from betrayal that he had never learned how to accept genuine love and comfort from people who cared about him. "I should be able to grieve with somebody," he thought, standing by his father's casket. "I should have somebody who really knows me." But he didn't. He had built his life around being strong enough that he didn't need anybody. And now, when he needed someone most, there was no one there who truly understood him. The pain of his father's death combined with the unresolved pain from his childhood, creating an emotional crisis that led to Michael's temporary retirement from basketball. He left the Bulls to play minor league baseball, trying to fulfill a dream his father had once had for him. During his time away from basketball, playing for the Birmingham Barons, Michael began to understand the cost of the walls he had built. He had achieved everything he had dreamed of as a child, but he had done it alone. One day in 1994, while going through his father's belongings, Michael found something that stopped him cold. It was an old newspaper clipping from the Wilmington Star-News, dated 1973. The headline read, "Local Boys Win Summer Reading Contest." The article included a small photograph of two young boys holding certificates. One was 10-year-old Michael Jordan. The other was 10-year-old Tommy Richardson. Michael stared at the photograph for a long time. Both boys were smiling widely, their arms around each other's shoulders. They looked so happy, so innocent, so completely trusting. His father had kept this newspaper clipping for over 20 years. James Jordan had saved a memory of his son's friendship that Michael himself had tried to erase. That night, Michael called information and tried to find a phone number for Tommy Richardson. In Charlotte, there were several Richardsons listed, but none of them was the right Tommy. He wondered what Tommy looked like now. Whether he had gotten married, had children, found success in his own life. He wondered if Tommy ever thought about their childhood friendship, or if he had forgotten about Michael completely. Most of all, he wondered what his life might have been like if he had handled that night in the woods differently. What if he had told his parents the truth? What if he had tried to understand why Tommy did what he did? What if he had found a way to forgive? But these thoughts felt dangerous to Michael. He had built his entire identity around being someone who didn't need anybody else. Someone who couldn't be hurt because he didn't allow people close enough to hurt him. It's too late to change now, he told himself. I am who I am. But late at night, when he couldn't sleep, Michael would sometimes take out that old newspaper clipping and stare at the two smiling boys. He would remember what it felt like to trust someone completely. What it felt like to have a friend who shared your secrets and dreams. And sometimes just for a moment, he would allow himself to miss that feeling. In 1995, Michael returned to basketball with the Bulls. He won 3 more championships and cemented his legacy as the greatest player of all time. But the emotional walls remained as high as ever. Success had given him everything he thought he wanted: fame, money, respect, admiration. But it couldn't give him the one thing he had lost that night in the woods behind Sunset Park: the ability to trust someone with his whole heart. As Michael's playing career wound down, he began to understand that some victories came at a cost that was too high to pay. He had won at basketball, but he had lost at something even more important. He had lost the ability to truly connect with another human being. And that loss would haunt him for the rest of his life. October 2010. Michael Jordan sat in his Chicago office, rain hitting the windows like tears from heaven. The interview with the reporters had ended hours ago, but he couldn't stop thinking about the questions they had asked about his childhood. Tell us about your early friendships, Mr. Jordan. Who were the people who shaped you before basketball? He had given them the same polished answers he always gave. Stories about his family, his coaches, his determination to succeed. But afterward, alone in his office, the memories he had spent decades suppressing came flooding back. The photograph of him and Tommy Richardson lay on his desk. Michael's hands shook as he picked it up again. 2 10-year-old boys with their arms around each other, smiling like they had the whole world figured out. His assistant Maria had left for the day. The building was quiet except for the sound of rain and his own breathing. For the first time in years, Michael allowed himself to truly remember. He remembered climbing the oak tree between their houses every morning. He remembered sharing sandwiches and comic books and dreams about the future. He remembered promising to be friends forever. And he remembered the night in the woods when it all fell apart. Michael opened his desk drawer and pulled out something else. The old newspaper clipping his father had kept. Local boys win summer reading contest. 2 boys who had once been inseparable, before race and hatred and fear tore them apart. His phone rang, startling him out of his memories. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize with a North Carolina area code. Michael almost didn't answer it. He got calls from strangers all the time, reporters, business people, fans who somehow got his private number. But something made him pick up. Hello? Michael Jordan? The voice was older now, weathered by 40 years of life, but still familiar. Michael's heart stopped. Who is this? It's Tommy. Tommy Richardson. The phone nearly slipped from Michael's hand. After all these years of wondering, of searching phone books, of pushing memories away, Tommy Richardson was calling him. How did you get this number? Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. I work for a law firm in Charlotte. We have ways of finding people. Tommy paused. Michael, I've been trying to reach you for 20 years. Michael didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to hang up immediately. Part of him wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Part of him was that 10-year-old boy again, confused and hurt and hoping for an explanation that would make everything make sense. What do you want? He finally managed. I want to talk to you, face to face. There are things I need to tell you, things I should have told you 37 years ago. We got nothing to talk about, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, we do, Tommy said firmly. I know you probably hate me. I know you have every right to hang up this phone and never think about me again. But I'm asking you for 1 hour of your time. Why now? Why after all these years? Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Because I'm dying, Michael. The words hit Michael like a physical blow. What? Cancer. The doctors say I got maybe 6 months left. And before I go, I need to tell you the truth about that night. The whole truth. Michael's mind raced. Tommy was dying. Tommy wanted to see him. Tommy claimed there was more to the story than Michael knew. You told me the truth that night, Michael said. You said our friendship was pretend. You said it was all fake. No, Tommy said, his voice heavy with pain. That's what I said, but it wasn't the truth. The truth is much more complicated. And much worse. What do you mean? I can't tell you over the phone. Please, Michael. I'm in Chicago right now. I flew here hoping to see you. Give me 1 hour. If you still hate me after that, I'll leave and never bother you again. Michael looked out at the rain-soaked Chicago streets. Somewhere out there, the boy who had been his best friend and his worst enemy was waiting for answers that Michael had been running from for almost 4 decades. Where? Michael heard himself ask. There's a coffee shop called Murphy's on North Michigan Avenue. I'll be there tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll wait for you. The line went quiet except for the sound of both men breathing. Michael? Tommy said softly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you worse than anybody should ever hurt a friend. But I need you to know what really happened that night. Why should I believe anything you tell me now? Michael asked. Because, Tommy said, I'm the one who's been sending you those newspaper clippings. Michael's blood ran cold. For 15 years, someone had been anonymously mailing him newspaper articles about racism, college friendship, and forgiveness. He had always thrown them away without reading them completely. But he had wondered who was sending them. That was you. I've been trying to find a way to reach you for decades, Tommy said. Trying to find the courage to tell you the truth. The cancer gave me that courage. When you're dying, you stop being afraid of consequences. What truth? Michael demanded. What could possibly be worse than what you already did to me? Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. Jake didn't just threaten me that night, Michael. He threatened you too. And when I refused to help him at first, he showed me what he would do if I didn't cooperate. What are you talking about? Jake and his friends had already hurt another black kid. A boy named David Williams, who lived near the river. They put him in the hospital. Michael. And they told me that's what would happen to you if I didn't help them. Michael felt sick. David Williams. He remembered that name. A 12-year-old boy who had been beaten so badly in the summer of 1973 that he had to move away from Wilmington. Everyone said it was a random attack. No one had ever been arrested. You're lying, Michael said. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. I wish I was, Tommy said. I thought I was protecting you by going along with their plan. I thought if I helped them scare you a little bit, they would leave you alone. I didn't know they were going to be so cruel. I didn't know they were going to make me say our friendship was fake. Michael's head was spinning. Could this be true? Had Tommy betrayed him to protect him? Even if that's true, Michael said, you still chose to hurt me instead of telling me what was happening. You're right, Tommy said. I was 11 years old and scared. But that's no excuse. I made the wrong choice. I've regretted it every day since. Michael stared at the photograph on his desk. 2 boys who had trusted each other completely before the world taught them that trust was dangerous. I'll think about it, Michael said finally. That's all I can ask, Tommy replied. Murphy's Coffee Shop. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll be there whether you come or not. After Tommy hung up, Michael sat in his office for hours watching the rain fall and thinking about choices. The choice Tommy had made 37 years ago. The choice Michael had made to never trust anyone completely again. The choice he had to make now. At midnight, he was still sitting there holding the photograph and wondering if some wounds could ever truly heal. Murphy's Coffee Shop on North Michigan Avenue was busy for a Tuesday afternoon. Business people talked on phones, college students typed on laptops, and tourists studied maps of Chicago. Michael Jordan sat in a corner booth wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, hoping no one would recognize him. At exactly 2 p.m., a man walked through the front door. Michael recognized him immediately, even though 37 years had changed them both. Tommy Richardson was thinner now, his red hair mostly gray, his freckled face lined with age and worry. But his eyes were the same. Tommy spotted Michael and walked slowly to the booth. For a moment, they just looked at each other. 2 men in their late 40s, carrying the weight of a childhood betrayal that had shaped both their lives. Thank you for coming, Tommy said, sliding into the seat across from Michael. Michael didn't respond. He was studying Tommy's face, looking for signs of the illness he had mentioned. Tommy did look sick, pale and thin, with dark circles under his eyes. You look good, Tommy said. Success agrees with you. Cut the small talk, Michael said coldly. You said you had something to tell me, so tell me. Tommy nodded and pulled out a manila envelope. Before I start, I want you to see something. He opened the envelope and removed several old photographs and documents. The first photo showed 6 teenage boys standing together. Michael recognized Jake Richardson and his friends from that night in the woods. That was taken 3 days before our camping trip, Tommy said. Jake and his gang called themselves the White Knights. They were like a hate group for teenagers. Michael studied the photo. The boys were making aggressive poses, trying to look tough and intimidating. They had been planning to hurt you for months, Tommy continued. Not just scare you, really hurt you. Maybe even kill you. Why? Michael asked, though he was beginning to understand. Because you were successful. Because you were confident. Because you acted like you belonged in our neighborhood. Tommy's voice was shaky. And because you were friends with me. Tommy pulled out another document, a handwritten letter on lined notebook paper. Jake wrote this letter to our parents 3 weeks before the camping trip, Tommy said. He told them he was worried about me being friends with the black boy. He said it was making me confused about my racial identity. Michael read the letter, his anger growing with each word. Jake had written detailed complaints about Michael's friendship with Tommy, calling it unnatural and dangerous to Tommy's development. Our parents told Jake to mind his own business, Tommy said. They said my friendship with you was healthy and normal. That made Jake even madder. So he decided to do something about it, Michael said. Not just Jake. The whole group. They had been targeting black kids in Wilmington all summer. David Williams was just the beginning. Tommy pulled out a newspaper clipping from July 1973. The headline read, "Local boy hospitalized after attack." The article described how 12-year-old David Williams had been beaten by unknown assailants near the Cape Fear River. Jake and his friends did that, Tommy said. They bragged about it. Said they were teaching black kids to stay in their place. Michael felt sick reading about David's injuries. Broken ribs, a concussion, internal bleeding. The boy had spent 2 weeks in the hospital. After they hurt David, they started planning for you, Tommy continued. But they needed a way to get you alone, away from your family, away from help. So they used you. They tried to recruit me first. Jake said it was my duty as his brother to help them. When I refused, he showed me pictures of what they did to David Williams. Tommy's hands were shaking as he pulled out the final item from the envelope, a Polaroid photograph that made Michael gasp. The photo showed David Williams in his hospital bed, his face swollen and bandaged, tubes running from his arms. Jake took this picture when he visited David in the hospital, Tommy said. He pretended to be a concerned neighbor, but really he was threatening me. Michael stared at the horrible photograph. David Williams looked like he was barely alive. Jake told me this would happen to you if I didn't help them, Tommy said, tears in his eyes. He said they were going to hurt you no matter what, but if I cooperated, they would just scare you instead of putting you in the hospital. Why didn't you tell someone? Michael asked. Why didn't you tell your parents or the police? I was 11 years old, Tommy said. Jake convinced me that no one would believe a black kid over 6 white teenagers. He said if I told anyone, they would just hurt you worse. Michael was beginning to understand the impossible position Tommy had been in, but it still didn't excuse what happened next. Even if that's true, Michael said, you still went along with their plan. You still tricked me into going to those woods. I thought I could control it, Tommy said desperately. I thought if I played along, I could make sure they didn't really hurt you. I thought I could protect you. By betraying me? By sacrificing our friendship to save your life, Tommy said. I thought losing a friend was better than you ending up like David Williams. Tommy pulled out one more item, his old blue notebook. The same notebook Jake had made him read from that night in the woods. This notebook wasn't just about spying on you, Tommy said, opening it to show Michael the pages. Look at it closely. Michael read the entries more carefully this time. Mixed in with observations about Michael's habits and schedules were other things. Warnings about which white teenagers to avoid. Notes about safe routes to walk home from school. Even a list of adults Michael could trust if he ever felt threatened. I wasn't just gathering information for Jake, Tommy explained. I was trying to figure out how to keep you safe. Every entry in here was me trying to understand how to protect you without Jake realizing what I was doing. Michael read entry after entry, seeing them in a completely different light. What he had thought was betrayal was actually a desperate attempt by an 11-year-old boy to save his best friend's life. But when they made you read from it that night, Michael said, You made it sound like you were spying on me. Because Jake was standing right there. Tommy said. If I had told the truth about what the notebook really was, he would have known I was trying to protect you. And then they would have killed you. So you let me think you betrayed me instead. I thought it was better for you to hate me and be alive than to love me and be dead, Tommy said, crying openly now. I thought if you believed our friendship was fake, you would stay away from white kids and be safer. Michael felt his whole understanding of that night shifting. Everything he had believed for 37 years was wrong. Tommy hadn't betrayed him. Tommy had saved his life. Why didn't you ever tell me the truth? Michael asked. I tried, Tommy said. I tried to explain that day on Gordon Road when we moved away. I tried calling you in high school. I tried writing letters when you were at UNC. You never wanted to hear from me, because I thought you had betrayed me. And I let you think that, Tommy said, because I thought it was better for you to be safe and successful than to be my friend. Michael stared at the evidence spread across the table. The photographs, the documents, the notebook that told a completely different story than the one he had believed his whole life. Jake and his friends. Michael said slowly, what happened to them? Jake died in a car accident in 1995. Drunk driving. The others, some went to prison for other crimes. Some just stayed in Wilmington and never amounted to much. Tommy wiped his eyes, but they succeeded in what they wanted to do. They destroyed our friendship. Michael felt 37 years of anger and pain shifting inside him. The betrayal that had shaped his entire life hadn't been a betrayal at all. It had been the most loyal thing a friend could do. Tommy, Michael said quietly, I'm so sorry. You're sorry? Tommy looked confused. Michael, I'm the one who should be sorry. I ruined your life. No, Michael said, finally understanding. You saved my life. And I've spent 37 years hating you for it. The coffee shop seemed to disappear around them. The sounds of other customers faded away. For Michael Jordan and Tommy Richardson, the world had shrunk to just this table, these documents, and 37 years of misunderstood pain. Tommy wiped his eyes with a napkin. You don't need to apologize to me, Michael. What I did was still wrong, even if my reasons were good. No, Michael said firmly. What you did was brave. You were 11 years old, and you made the hardest choice any friend could make. Michael picked up the photograph of David Williams in the hospital bed. The image that had haunted Tommy for decades. The reason Tommy had sacrificed everything to protect Michael. This boy, Michael said softly. David Williams. What happened to him? His family moved to Philadelphia after he got out of the hospital, Tommy said. I tried to find him a few years ago to apologize for not stopping what happened to him. But I couldn't locate him. You were just a kid, Tommy. You couldn't have stopped Jake and his friends. Maybe not. But I could have warned David. I could have told someone about the White Knights before they hurt him. Michael understood that guilt. He had carried his own guilt for 37 years. Guilt about not being strong enough to stop the boys in the woods. Guilt about not telling his parents what happened. Guilt about building walls that kept everyone at a distance. We were children, Michael said. We did the best we could with impossible situations. Tommy nodded. But Michael could see the weight of decades-old regret in his eyes. Can I ask you something? Tommy said. Did my choice work? Did staying away from white kids keep you safer? Michael thought about his life after that night. How he had thrown himself into basketball and academics. How he had built walls around his heart. How he had achieved incredible success, but struggled with trust and intimacy. In some ways, yes, Michael said honestly. I never got physically hurt again. But in other ways, what happened that night hurt me for decades. How? Michael took a deep breath. For the first time in his adult life, he was about to be completely honest with someone about his deepest pain. I stopped trusting people, he said. I thought you had betrayed me, so I decided never to let anyone get that close again. I built walls around myself that kept me safe, but they also kept me alone. Tommy's face crumpled with pain. Oh, Michael, I'm so sorry. You don't understand, Michael said. Those walls also made me successful. The drive to prove myself, the refusal to depend on anyone else, the determination to be perfect. All of that came from what I thought you did to me. So my betrayal helped make you great? Your sacrifice helped make me great, Michael corrected. But it also made me lonely. They sat in silence for a moment, processing the complexity of what had happened to them both. "I have something for you," Tommy said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small wrapped box. "I've been carrying this around for 20 years, hoping someday I'd get the chance to give it to you." Michael opened the box carefully. Inside was a baseball card, a pristine 1968 Willie Mays card, identical to the one that had been torn that night in the woods. "I know it can't replace the one they destroyed," Tommy said, "but I wanted you to have it." Michael held the card gently, remembering how devastated he had been when Dale Murphy tore his original card in half. "I still have the pieces of my old one," he said, "taped back together." "You kept it?" "It became a symbol for me, broken but not destroyed, damaged but still valuable." Tommy smiled through his tears. "That sounds like both of us." Michael looked at his childhood friend, really looked at him for the first time since they were children. He saw the kind eyes that had always been there, the same face that had shared countless adventures and secrets, the same person who had loved him enough to sacrifice everything to keep him safe. "Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Anything. That summer before the camping trip, the fun we had, the friendship we shared, was any of that real?" Tommy's eyes filled with fresh tears. "It was the realest thing in my life. Every adventure, every secret, every promise we made. All of it was real. That's what made Jake's plan so horrible. He knew our friendship was genuine, and he used it as a weapon. And the promises we made, to be friends forever, I meant every word," Tommy said. "Even when I was letting you think I had betrayed you, I was still keeping that promise. I was still protecting you." Michael felt something break open inside his chest. A wall that had been standing for 37 years finally crumbled. All the anger, all the hurt, all the carefully constructed barriers against trusting anyone completely, it all came tumbling down. "Tommy," he said, his voice cracking, "I forgive you. For everything." "Michael," and more than that, Michael continued, "I'm proud of you. You made an impossible choice, and you chose to save my life over saving our friendship. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard of." Tommy broke down completely then, sobbing in a way that suggested he had been holding these tears inside for decades. "I missed you so much," Tommy said through his tears. "Every day for 37 years, I missed my best friend." "I missed you too," Michael said, surprised to realize it was true. "I just didn't know I was allowed to miss you." They talked for 3 more hours in that coffee shop, about their lives, their families, their regrets and hopes. Michael learned that Tommy had become a civil rights lawyer, dedicating his career to fighting the same kind of hatred that had torn them apart as children. Tommy learned about Michael's struggles with trust and intimacy, how the trauma of that night had shaped his approach to every relationship since. "I wish I could take it back," Tommy said as the afternoon grew late. "I wish I could give you back the ability to trust people completely." "You just did," Michael said. "What do you mean?" "You told me the truth, even though you didn't have to. Even though you could have taken this secret to your grave. That takes courage and honesty. I had forgotten people were capable of." As they prepared to leave, Tommy hesitated. "Michael, I know this might be too much to ask, but my cancer treatment is here in Chicago. I'll be in the city for the next few months. Would you maybe want to get together again sometime?" Michael didn't hesitate. "Yes. I'd like that very much." They exchanged phone numbers, something Michael rarely did with anyone. As they stood to leave, Tommy reached out tentatively for a handshake. Instead, Michael pulled him into a hug. A real hug, full of 37 years of lost friendship and newfound understanding. "Thank you," Michael whispered. "Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth. And thank you for being the best friend a kid could ask for." "Thank you for forgiving me," Tommy whispered back. "Thank you for letting me be your friend again." That night, Michael sat in his office again. But everything was different now. The photograph of 2 smiling boys no longer made his hands shake with anger and hurt. Instead, it made him smile with memory and gratitude. He had spent 37 years believing that people couldn't be trusted, that friendship was dangerous, that owning his heart would only lead to pain. But Tommy Richardson had just proven him wrong about all of that. And for the first time since he was 10 years old, Michael Jordan allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, it was safe to trust someone completely again. The real lesson here isn't just about basketball or fame. It's about how childhood trauma can shape our entire lives, and how sometimes the truth we've believed for decades isn't the truth at all. Tommy Richardson's sacrifice shows us that real friendship means putting someone else's safety before your own happiness, even when no one will ever know what you did. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us what city or country you're in. It's amazing to connect with people from all around the world who are touched by stories like this. If this story moved you, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us reach more people who might need to hear stories about forgiveness, friendship, and healing. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. We share incredible true stories like this one every week. Stories that inspire, educate, and remind us of our shared humanity. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Michael and Tommy's can spark important conversations about racism, forgiveness, and the power of truth. When we share these stories, we spread kindness and awareness that can make a real difference in someone's life. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.